This is the practice for concept quiz 25. First here we're doing exact values of some trig functions. So cotangent is cosine divided by sine. So we need to find cosine of 11 pi over 6 divided by sine of 11 pi over 6. So if you're at 11 pi over 6, you're here. The cosine is root 3 over 2. And we're dividing by sine. Sine is negative 1/2. So if we're dividing root 3 over 2 by negative 1/2, that's the same as multiplying by negative 2 over 1. And then simplifying that, we still have the negative and the root 3. Cosecant of 120 degrees. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, or 1 over sine of 120 degrees. So 1 over, if you're at 120 degrees, sine is equal to root 3 over 2. 1 divided by root 3 over 2 is the same as 1 multiplied by 2 over root 3. And we don't want to leave a radical in the denominator, so to rationalize the denominator, we multiply the numerator and denominator by root 3. The numerator we get 2 root 3, and the denominator is just 3. Which of the following values is undefined? So secant is 1 over cosine of 180. When you're at 180 degrees, the cosine is negative 1. So 1 divided by negative 1 is negative 1, so that is not undefined. Tangent of pi is equal to sine of pi divided by cosine of pi. So at pi radians, sine at this value is 0, cosine is negative 1. If you have a 0 in the numerator and you divide by something, that is equal to 0. So this is not undefined. Cosecant is 1 over sine of 360 degrees. And at 360 degrees, sine is equal to 0. So 1 over 0. If you divide by 0, so if the 0 is in the denominator, this is undefined. So this is an answer. And let's check the last one. Cotangent is cosine divided by sine. Cosine of 90 degrees is 0. Sine of 90 degrees is 1. So that is equal to 0. So only number 3 is undefined. Alright, in part C, we're sketching a graph of this sine equation. So in this sine equation, there's two important things here. H is equal to pi, k is equal to 1. H gives us the horizontal shift. So this is right by pi units and up by 1 unit. So this is our HK, or our starting point. Now from there, the sine graph is going to go above the midline. So this is our midline. It's going to go above the midline first because the A value is positive. If this had been a negative number, the graph would go below the midline first. So from here, every pi over 2 units, I'm going to plot a point. Goes up 1, back down to the midline, down by 1 unit, and back up to the midline. And I'm going to graph more of this curve left and right of this part right here. Alright, on part D, we're given a graph and we're asked to write the equation. So the equation of a sine graph is of the form y equals a x minus h, sine x minus h, and then plus k. So in this case, our hk is our starting point right here. So h is equal to pi over 2, k is equal to negative 1. And because the graph is going below the midline first, if we look at this solid portion, it's going below the midline first and then above, our A is going to be equal to a negative value. The amplitude of the graph is 1, so in that case the a value is 1, in this case negative 1. Back to this one, the a value was equal to positive 1, which is why the graph went up to an amplitude of positive 1. From the midline it went up by 1 and down by 1. So in this case our equation is y equals a sine x minus h plus k. Alright, in this last part here we're trying to figure out which of the following is not equivalent to the graph from part C. Because this graph continues forever, there are many equations that could match this graph. So let's look at each option here. This graph is telling us to go left by pi and up by 1. So from 0 I'm going to go left by pi and up by 1. And then a positive a value here means the graph goes up first. So this is a match. This is giving us x minus 3 pi plus 1, so right by 3 pi and up by 1. This is pi, 2 pi, this is 3 pi. So right by 3 pi and up by 1, this would be the starting point. The a value is negative, which would mean the graph would go below the midline first. So this is not equivalent. In this case, we're going right by 3 pi and up by 1. So right by 3 pi and up by 1, a positive a value here of 1, so it goes above first. So this is a match. And lastly here, no horizontal shift, but up by 1 unit. And then an a value of negative 1, which means the graph goes below the midline first. So this is also a match. So only number 2 is not equivalent.